Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. May God's peace and blessings be with you, inshallah. Today I will show you probably one of the coolest miracles without much needed background knowledge. So let's take a look at this Quran verse. They have remained in their cave for 300 years, adding 9. So what this is describing is talking about a handful of teenagers, guys, all young men with a dog, at around the year 150, maybe 200, somewhere around there, after Christ, peace be upon him. And they were being persecuted by the Romans. So this was somewhere in Rome. And these group of young men were scared to be persecuted by the Romans because they would make them participate in witchcraft rituals of drinking blood and sprinkling blood, and they didn't want to do that because they only served the one and only living God of the universe, the creator of the seven heavens and the earth. And so they said among each other, we refuse to partake in any witchcraft of sprinkling blood and drinking blood and all this nonsense. So they went into a cave with their dog, and God made them fall asleep. And it wasn't known how many years they stayed there asleep. Well, the Quran tells us that they were there with their dog asleep for 300 years at 9. By the time they woke up in a different Roman Empire, which had now adopted Christianity as their state religion. And that's good and that's bad, but that's not really the point of the video. But real quick, the good thing about that is that they were no longer going to be persecuted. The bad thing about that is that they mixed it in with these rituals of drinking blood and spilling blood and all that. They kind of mixed it in. That's kind of how it got corrupt. But the biggest point here is that the Roman Empire used the Gregorian calendar, the solar calendar, 365 days, roughly with a quarter, but we say 365 days in a year. The Arabs, especially where the Quran comes from, the Arabian Peninsula, before Islam and after Islam, they're very adamant about only using the lunar calendar. And that means that instead of measuring a year with the sun, they measure it with the moon. And they hate the solar calendar. Some of these people here that like to correct me, they'll tell you they hate the solar calendar. They say if any holiday is called a holiday in the solar calendar, haram, and all this nonsense. And I call it nonsense because God, Allah SWT, created the solar year. Simultaneously at the same time, He owns the lunar year as well. So this verse here tells us that. It says, how long were the young men and their dog asleep in the cave? It says they were asleep 300 years. For those of us that have the solar Gregorian calendar by default in our minds, 300 years. It says at 9 for those of you that have the lunar calendar in your minds by default. 309 years for you, 300 years for us Western folk. Don't believe me? Check this out.